this is very timely because, I think a lot of people right now are assessing their career. Okay. Some people because they have to. And I think our hearts go out to a lot of the folks that have been negatively impacted of the events of the last year. But I think a lot of people are really assessing career. And sometimes in that process, we are hip to look to, different types of industries. I know you've had a very interesting trajectory. As have I. I've been in a lot of different industry verticals that if you put them all on paper, they don't make any sense. So I'm curious as to your thoughts on just career development in general. What's the missing element? Because you can go out right now and, sure, you could get a career coach. You could, look up articles on career advice and things like that. But I'm curious as to what are the types of things that have really been impactful for you personally in your career journey? And what would you tell somebody right now that's maybe looking at different career choices, maybe different industries, or just looking to make a change in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to your point, Carson, I know many people are doing this right now just for the sake of development, or others because they have to. I would say two things that are critical for me, Carson, that really just changed my approach on anything. And just for everybody that's listening to have a frame of reference as to what my trajectory has been. I graduated, I'm an electrical engineer by training. So I started literally as an electrical engineer doing engineering work. I then took on more customer support, sales types of role, working for an industrial manufacturing company called Cummins, selling really to big mining enterprises, big oil and gas enterprises, big power generation enterprises. I did that for about 3 or 4 years, but I always loved technology as part of my job. Okay. And so I started doing within my job, just finding excuses for me to leverage technology to make myself better at my job. That ultimately morphed into an offer for me to do the technology piece 100% of the time. Okay. And that eventually led to a job at a startup that brought me into the Microsoft ecosystem. And that ultimately led me to my role today, which is at Microsoft, leading a team of sellers selling into the East US. So all that to say, I've gone from technical to technical leadership to sales and project management to leading a startup to now leadership and sales both at Microsoft and the corporate and enterprise world. My point, Carson, have been my two critical insights have been: one, the moment for you to do the next job you want to get is today. And what I mean by that is, let's say that I am a salesperson, okay? But I'm really passionate about today I sell vehicles, or today I sell kitchens, okay? But I'm really passionate about selling technology. The moment for you to learn and sell technology is not when you get the technology sales job. It's today. What can you do within your vehicle sales or auto sales or kitchen sales job that's going to allow you to sell technology within it and become the best trusted technology seller that you can possibly get? And that for me was a huge thing. And I'll give you a quick story, right? The reason that I got into technology is when I was in the field selling and supporting mining companies, oil and gas companies, I was just married and traveling 3 weeks and a half a month, okay? Just spending 100% of time in the field. And a lot of it was so that I could understand the engines and equipment that I was supporting, that I could understand and diagnose if they were failing or not failing and why they were failing. And eventually we found that there was a way for us to do that remotely. So for personal reasons, I'm like, I gotta master this technology, because if I do that, I don't have to travel anymore. And I started leveraging what we now call IoT or telematics or telemetry to get information from that equipment in the field and leverage that data to prevent those failures. So all that to say, Carson, I did the technology job 2 years earlier than my first technology job. And I think that's the first paradigm shift. If you're waiting for the job that you want to start doing that role, you're already too late. What can you do today, even if it's as a stretch project, even if it's getting with people within the organization who are driving to that? What can you do today to do the job that you want to have? That's one. And then the second thing is, I would say, just changing the lens of networking. We tend to think of networking as, let me go to a happy hour and have an uncomfortable conversation with a bunch of people about things that neither they or I care about, right? And that to me is by no means what networking is. And I think, Carson, you and I may actually be a great example of this, right? I don't know if you even remember this, but when we met each other, we actually overlapped for about a month, and we've known each other for 4 years. But the reason, but why we do that is we always find ways to add value to each other, okay? And so that what, to me, networking is about every single time, is identifying somebody that you admire, that you like, that you want to model, understanding what they care about, and understanding what can I do in my role today that's both valuable to you and valuable to me, because it helps me solidify relationships and it helps me build the skills that I want to get. So for me, when I think about career and industry change, if you change your paradigm and your lens on those two things, one, doing the job you want to have today, finding opportunities to do it before you ever apply for it, okay, that's one. And two, changing our perspective on networking from a happy hour to more of a how do I identify the win-wins and opportunities to add value to the people that I model and I would love to work with.
It's powerful. And I've got a ton of thoughts around that. If I were to talk to my 20-something-year-old self, I think the advice that basically echoes what you just said that would have mattered most to me would be, first off, that it is all about relationships. Your path is not going to be or look like what you think it will. I thought I was down a certain path. I was, getting promoted, and I was always looking at, okay, what's the next role? What's the next role? I want to master this and then move to my next role. That doesn't work like that. I thought I'd spend my entire career at one organization. That didn't happen either. And so I think the key is being open to where the journey is going to take you, but really double down on your passions and your brand and relationships. You got to know yourself. You got to know what your strengths are. You got to know what your passions are. You got to know what you care about, and you got to infuse that into what you do. But every job that I've been pulled into in my life has been because of relationships that I had, people pulling me into different types of roles, or relationships that I had that mattered when it came to getting the job. I mean, that's just the nature of that game. Sure, there's anomalies. I got one job years ago from a job board. Okay, but the rest of them have been because I knew somebody or because my brand was strong enough that I got brought into a situation. So to your point, be right now what you want to be. Start doing some of those things that you want your name to be linked to and that you want to be synonymous with. Create your own next job with what you're doing. I think that's a big miss that a lot of people, fail to do. They fail to realize that you're interviewing for your next job right now with the people that you interact with, the value that you bring. The other part of that, and this exemplifies what you just said about like our relationship. Yeah, we worked together technically on paper for a very, very brief amount of time. But then I asked you, because of some of the work that we were doing, like, hey, let's maybe do a couple of projects together to mutually benefit us. Say yes to opportunities, even if they don't necessarily make sense. And you know what? Sometimes I'm probably bad about that because I get asked to do stuff all the time, and I always say yes. And it's probably to my detriment because it's a lot of this stuff, it can take time, but you never know the value that's going to come to you when you say yes to an opportunity and you get involved with other groups of people. I've had people in different divisions of the business that have asked me like, hey, will you do this or that? Will you create a training module for this or that? Stuff that's not even really directly related to my own role. But I say yes every single time, because you never know where these relationships will evolve. I mean, you and I are sitting here right now having a conversation. We've known each other 4 years, but we worked together for a very brief amount of time as part of the same team. But yet I'm learning a ton during this conversation. And, I think if people challenge the norms, you hit on something that we've all been there at those networking events where you stand around, you hold your drink, and you're looking at your watch. How long do I have to sit here before I can make a respectful exit? And then you fumble around for conversations, you exchange a business card, and then you never talk to those people again. Look for ways that you can add value in every single relationship you come across. And again, same philosophies apply with colleagues that it does with customers. It's about looking for ways to help them win. It's about looking for ways to add value for them and figuring out what they care about and how you might be able to do something for them